This is not a surprise to anybody. It's really sad that it's got to this point, but I've got to do something.
My life, my story and every experience that I've had and turned it into a salacious headline.
A stunning new wave of controversy is rippling through royal circles tonight, as explosive commentary from Tom Bower and Lady Colin Campbell casts fresh doubt on one of the most tightly guarded stories in the modern monarchy, the story surrounding Meghan Markle and Princess Lilibet. Behind the polished statements and the carefully curated image, insiders now suggest the public may only ever have seen half the picture. And in the most startling twist of all, reports hint that Prince Harry himself may have been kept in the dark about details hiding in plain sight. Could these claims rewrite everything we thought we understood about this family? What do you think? Are Bower and Lady C exposing an uncomfortable truth, or simply fanning the flames of another royal storm? Share your opinion in the comments below. And if you love uncovering the real story behind the palace headlines, make sure you subscribe, because what comes next may surprise you. Power has never been able to bury the truth. That, according to both Tom Bower and Lady Colin Campbell, is the one lesson the world's most influential people refuse to learn. Long before any of Bower's books ever reached a shelf, the real fights were happening in private, in lawyers' offices, in publishers' boardrooms, in tense phone calls that never made the news. Time and again, wealthy and connected figures believed that enough money, enough influence, and enough pressure could stop an inconvenient story from ever seeing daylight. And time and again, that belief collapsed. Bower's method has always been the reason. His investigations were never built on a single whisper or one leaked page. They were built slowly. Years of interviews, cross-checked records, and evidence stacked piece by piece until the structure could no longer be shaken. By the time his subjects grasped the scale of what had been assembled, it was usually too late to stop it. Lady C has made a similar observation for decades. Powerful people rarely understand that their reaction to scrutiny can do more damage than the scrutiny itself. Fight a story too hard, and you feed it. Robert Maxwell learned that lesson in the most dramatic way imaginable. At his peak, he controlled a publishing empire and enjoyed access most politicians could only dream of. Yet, as the questions closed in, his responses grew more desperate. And then, in 1991, his shocking death aboard his own yacht turned a brewing scandal into a global mystery, followed by the collapse of his empire and the devastation of thousands of ordinary pension holders. Richard Branson chose the courtroom, believing the law would shield his name. Instead, the proceedings created a permanent public record, and even more attention. Conrad Black, whose reach stretched across continents, discovered that political friendships and media ownership meant nothing once documented evidence began to pile up. For Bower and Lady C, the pattern is unmistakable. Resistance becomes part of the evidence. So when the Sussexes, protected by global fame, elite lawyers, and a fiercely loyal media narrative, entered Bower's sights, one question hung in the air. What details were these two veteran royal watchers quietly examining behind the scenes? Why were they so convinced the public story was incomplete? And could their findings genuinely reshape the narrative? Let's find out. The Sussexes seemed untouchable. Powerful legal representation, worldwide media attention, sympathetic interviewers, and a meticulously managed public image had built a protective wall around their version of events for years. Challenging that version carried real risk, professional, legal, and reputational. Yet, according to royal commentators, Tom Bower and Lady Colin Campbell were doing exactly that, and doing it quietly. While the public argued over interviews and documentaries, a different set of questions was reportedly taking shape away from the cameras, accounts being compared, timelines being checked, and inconsistencies being noted. And then came the moment. Much of this simmering tension broke into the open. In October 2022, Tom Bower appeared on Good Morning Britain, and what he said live on air sent commentators scrambling. Speaking with the bluntness that has defined his career, Bower publicly questioned elements of the Sussex narrative that most broadcasters had treated as untouchable, suggesting, in his view, that the couple's account of royal life did not always align with what his own research had found. It is important to say clearly, these were Bower's claims and interpretations, drawn from his 2022 book, and they have always been rejected by Harry and Meghan's camp. But the effect of that television moment was undeniable. A conversation that had lived in the margins suddenly had a national stage. Viewers began asking why a veteran investigative author with a decades-long record of taking on billionaires and surviving their lawyers was willing to stake his reputation on this. What exactly had he found? Why did the pushback against him seem so muted? And which specific story was he circling? The answer, according to those watching closely, traced back to a single name announced in the summer of 2021. Stay with us as the unanswered questions begin to unravel. On June 6, 2021, the world learned that Harry and Meghan had welcomed a daughter, Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor. The name was extraordinary. Lilibet was Queen Elizabeth's most intimate childhood nickname, the name used by her late husband and her closest family, a word carrying almost sacred weight inside the royal household. The couple's announcement presented the choice as a loving tribute to the Queen and to Harry's mother, Princess Diana. But within days, a crack appeared in the story, and it has never fully closed. The BBC, citing a palace source, reported that the Queen had never been asked about the use of her nickname. Harry and Meghan's team responded swiftly and firmly, insisting the prince had spoken to his grandmother before the announcement and would not have used the name had she not been supportive. A legal warning was even reportedly issued over the BBC's reporting. And there the matter froze. Two directly competing accounts from a palace source on one side and the Sussex camp on the other, with no public resolution ever offered. To this day, no one outside a very small circle knows precisely what was said in that conversation or how it was understood on each end. For Lady Colin Campbell, this unresolved contradiction has long been, in her telling, the loose thread of the entire Sussex story, small on the surface, enormous in its implications. Because if the two sides could not agree on something as simple as a phone call, what did that suggest about the larger narrative? Why did neither account ever change? And why, years later, are Bower and Lady C reportedly still pulling on this exact thread? Let's unravel the details. Fast forward to June 2026, and the story found new oxygen from the smallest of sparks. A post celebrating Princess Lilibet's 5th birthday appeared online. A brief, affectionate family tribute, but observers quickly noticed the comments had reportedly been restricted. That was all. A birthday message and a closed comment section. Yet in the hypercharged world of royal commentary, it was enough. Supporters saw a family sensibly protecting a small child from online cruelty, and in fairness, that reading is entirely reasonable. Critics, including voices aligned with Bower and Lady C, saw something else. A pattern, they argued, of carefully managed moments where questions are permitted to exist, but never permitted to be asked. Whichever interpretation you favor, the effect was the same. The old June 2021 dispute came roaring back into public conversation 5 years after it began. Commentators revisited the BBC report. They revisited the Sussex denial. They asked, once again, why such a simple disagreement had never been put to rest by either side. And that renewed attention sent royal watchers back through the timeline, searching for moments when the competing stories might have been reconciled face to face. One moment stood out above all others, a brief family meeting during the celebrations of a national milestone. What happened when Lilibet finally met the Queen? Why do those photographs now carry a weight nobody anticipated at the time? Let's find out. In June 2022, during the Platinum Jubilee celebrating 70 years of Elizabeth II's reign, Harry and Meghan returned to Britain with their children. Amid the pageantry, a quiet, private moment took place. The Queen reportedly met her great-granddaughter Lilibet for the first, and as history would have it, the only time, around the little girl's first birthday. At the time, it read as a hopeful footnote, a possible first step toward healing. Reports suggested the Sussexes had hoped for a photograph of the meeting, given that no official image was ever released. Accounts differ on exactly why, and the palace has never publicly explained. Then, just 3 months later, everything changed. On September 8, 2022, Queen Elizabeth passed away at Balmoral, and in a single afternoon, that brief Jubilee meeting was transformed. What had been a minor family moment became the final chapter of a relationship the public would never see documented. Every question about the Lilibet name, every competing account of that 2021 phone call was suddenly sealed in permanence. because the one person who could have settled the matter definitively was gone. Lady C has argued that this is precisely why the story refuses to die. The ultimate witness can no longer speak. And with the Queen's passing came a new reign, a new sovereign, and a new set of decisions that would quietly reshape the children's place in the institution. What happened to Lilibet's title when Charles became king? And why did a small ceremony in California, 9 months later, raise as many questions as it answered? Stay with us. With the accession of King Charles III, the rules of royal rank shifted automatically. As grandchildren of the monarch, Harry and Meghan's children became entitled to the styles of prince and princess, and in March 2023, the world learned the change had been embraced when the Sussexes announced that their daughter had been christened as Princess Lilibet Diana at their home in California. The ceremony itself was intimate and private, attended by a small circle, with senior members of the royal family reportedly invited but not present. On its face, this was a family milestone, and the details that matter are simple and documented. The christening happened, the title was used, and Buckingham Palace subsequently updated its records to reflect the children's royal styles. But commentators immediately noticed a tension, one that Bauer in particular has returned to again and again in his public commentary. Here was a couple who had stepped back from royal life, who had spoken at length about the pain the institution caused them, now formally adopting the institution's highest honorifics for their children. Supporters answer that the titles are the children's birthright, theirs to claim regardless of the parents' relationship with the palace, a perfectly coherent position. Critics counter that you cannot simultaneously frame the crown as a source of harm and a source of identity. Both arguments have force, but the deeper question the commentators kept circling was this: does the pattern point to something more deliberate? Is there a strategy connecting the name, the titles, and the imagery? Or is this simply a family navigating an impossible situation in real time? Let's dig deeper. This is the argument at the very heart of the Bauer and Lady C commentary, what they describe as the privacy versus visibility contradiction. In their telling, the Sussex story has followed a consistent rhythm: withdraw in the name of privacy, then return with precisely controlled visibility. Leave royal life to escape scrutiny, then sit for the most watched interviews on the planet. Shield the children from cameras, then introduce them to the world through carefully selected images and heartfelt announcements at moments of maximum attention. Now, to be absolutely fair, there is a strong counter-argument, and honest commentary has to state it. Wanting privacy from harassment is not the same as wanting invisibility, and every parent on earth curates what the world sees of their children. Nothing about selective sharing is inherently sinister, but Bauer and Lady C's contention, and it remains their contention, not established fact, is that the pattern is too consistent to be accidental. They argue that the narrative has been engineered with a sophistication the palace itself would envy, and that the Lilibet naming episode was the earliest and clearest example, a deeply emotional story released at a moment of global goodwill, resting on a private conversation that could never be independently verified. If they are right, the implications are uncomfortable. If they are wrong, they have badly misjudged a grieving, protective family. So which is it? And why has the institution with the most at stake, the palace itself, refused to say a single word either way? That silence is where this story reaches its strangest chapter. Let's find out. Deranged conspiracy theories and royal melodrama. That, broadly, is how the Sussex camp has characterized the wave of criticism from authors like Bauer. Strong words, and yet the most fascinating response of all came from the one party that said almost nothing: Buckingham Palace. Think about that. An institution famous for managing its image with surgical precision watched years of claims and counterclaims about the Queen's own nickname and chose near total silence. No confirmation, no denial, no clarifying statement. And on the other side, observers have noted the absence of the one action that would speak louder than any press release. For all the reported legal warnings early on, no defamation case over the core naming dispute has ever been fought to a public conclusion. Lady C has long argued that palace silence is never neutral, that when a story threatens the monarchy, it is smothered quietly, and when a story is considered useful, it is simply allowed to run. Whether that theory applies here is impossible to prove, but the questions it raises are the reason this saga will not die. What does the palace know that it has chosen not to say? Why has neither side sought the definitive public vindication a courtroom could provide? And what exactly do Tom Bower and Lady Colin Campbell believe they have found in the gap between the two competing accounts? The detail, as some reports have teased, that Harry himself may never have known? The honest answer is that only they know, and until they lay their cards fully on the table, the rest of us are left studying the silences. So now we turn it over to you. What do you think Bower and Lady C have really uncovered about the Lilibet story? Is this the slow unraveling of a carefully built narrative, or the persecution of a family that simply wanted out? Drop your theory in the comments below. We read every one. And if you want to be first in line when the next chapter of this royal mystery breaks, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because if the last 5 years have proven anything, it's that this story is far from over.